Judge Malcolm Mac Bronson, who presided over the Richmond Circuit Court at 400 North 9th Street, had cultivated a carefully constructed public image throughout his 22-year career on the bench. At 52, Judge Bronson lived in an affluent subdivision of Richmond's West End with his wife, Margaret Bronson, 49, a local real estate agent. Bronson's colleagues at the courthouse knew him as a disciplinarian who frequently handed down maximum sentences for traffic violations and minor offenses. His reputation for strict adherence to the law earned him respect among law enforcement and fellow judges in Virginia's 13th Judicial Circuit. However, court employees had witnessed concerning behaviors that contradicted his public persona. Sarah Martinez, a court clerk from 2015 to 2020, would later testify that Bronson often engaged in private conversations with female defendants in his chambers, a practice that violated standard court protocols. Additionally, financial records would eventually reveal that Bronson had accepted gifts and favorable loans from local business owners whose cases he presided over, though these transactions remained hidden at the time. On February 3, 2020, Richmond police officer James Thompson pulled over a 2008 Honda Civic on East Broad Street for a broken taillight. The driver, 18-year-old Zuri Wallace, was unable to produce a valid driver's license. Wallace, a senior at Armstrong High School, lived with her mother, Sharon Wallace, in a modest apartment on North 25th Street following her parents' separation 6 months earlier. Her father, Rashad Wallace, had moved to a smaller residence in the city's Manchester district, leaving the family in a precarious financial situation. Wallace's case appeared on Judge Bronson's docket on February 17, 2020. Court records show that Wallace arrived alone at 9:15 a.m., wearing clothes borrowed from her school's career center. Security camera footage from the courthouse, later retrieved by investigators, showed Bronson watching Wallace intently during the proceedings. After imposing a $500 fine and a mandatory driver's education course, Bronson requested Wallace remain behind, citing a need to discuss payment arrangements. What followed was documented through courthouse security cameras and subsequent cell phone records. At 10:45 a.m., Bronson and Wallace entered his chambers. They emerged 47 minutes later, with Wallace visibly distressed. Phone records would reveal that between February 17th and March 28, 2020, Bronson contacted Wallace 31 times from a prepaid mobile phone purchased at a convenience store on Forest Hill Avenue. Their encounters typically occurred at the Hampton Inn on West Broad Street, where Bronson maintained a room under the alias Michael Brooks. Hotel records indicate 6 separate meetings between February 20th and March 25, 2020. Security footage from the hotel showed Bronson entering through a side entrance, always wearing casual clothes and a baseball cap, contrasting sharply with his formal courtroom attire. Wallace would arrive approximately 15 to 20 minutes later, often appearing hesitant and looking over her shoulder as she entered the building. During this period, Bronson's behavior at work began to show subtle changes. Court reporter Daniel Chun noted in his personal logs that the judge seemed increasingly agitated during proceedings, particularly when dealing with young female defendants. Patricia Reynolds, Bronson's longtime judicial assistant, later reported to investigators that he had begun taking extended lunch breaks and making unusual schedule changes, often citing personal appointments that were never recorded in his official calendar. The final encounter took place on March 28, when Bronson abruptly terminated contact via text message, writing, "This ends now. Never contact me again. Never speak of this to anyone." By this time, though neither knew it yet, Wallace was already 4 weeks pregnant. The text message, sent at 11:42 p.m., was followed by 3 missed calls from Wallace's number between midnight and 1:15 a.m. Hotel security cameras captured Wallace waiting in the parking lot for over 2 hours that night, but Bronson never appeared. In April 2020, Zuri Wallace's world shifted dramatically when a home pregnancy test confirmed what she had begun to suspect. Medical records from Richmond Community Health Center show her first prenatal visit on April 15, 2020, where Dr. Elena Rodriguez documented the pregnancy at approximately 6 weeks. During this initial consultation, Zuri declined to provide information about the father, marking the unknown/prefer not to disclose option on her intake forms. Sharon Wallace, Zuri's mother, noticed her daughter's deteriorating condition but attributed it to academic stress and their family's recent troubles. Bank statements from this period show Sharon withdrawing $2,300 from her retirement account to help cover household expenses, unaware that her daughter was secretly setting aside money for impending medical bills. Meanwhile, Zuri had begun selling her personal belongings through various online platforms, generating an additional $1,200 that she kept hidden in a shoebox beneath her bed. Malik Wallace was born on December 12, 2020, at VCU Medical Center. Hospital records list only Zuri as the parent, with all queries about paternity met with firm silence. The birth certificate's father field remained blank, despite hospital staff's routine inquiries. Sharon Wallace took unpaid leave from her job at a local insurance agency to help care for her grandson. Zuri attempted to balance motherhood with her education, enrolling in online courses at Javes Sargent Reynolds Community College while caring for Malik. Her class attendance was sporadic, and professors' notes indicate frequent camera-off participation during virtual sessions, often accompanied by a baby's cries in the background. Financial aid documents reveal she qualified for maximum assistance, but the burden of childcare costs continually threatened to overwhelm her resources. Rashad Wallace's suspicions began to crystallize in early 2022, triggered by a chance encounter at Kroger's grocery store. Security footage shows Judge Bronson visibly startled upon seeing Malik in a shopping cart, quickly abandoning his purchases and leaving the store. This incident prompted Rashad to begin methodically documenting his daughter's timeline, creating a detailed spreadsheet correlating her court appearance with Malik's birth date. On March 15, 2022, Rashad Wallace requested a meeting with Judge Bronson through official channels, citing concerns about a prior case disposition. Courthouse visitor logs show him arriving at 2:30 p.m., wearing a hidden audio recorder purchased from an electronics store the previous day. The recording, later recovered by investigators, captured a tense 15-minute conversation in which Bronson maintained rigid professionalism while deflecting questions about Zuri's case. "I see hundreds of cases each month, Mr. Wallace," Bronson can be heard saying on the recording. "I couldn't possibly remember the specifics of your daughter's traffic violation from 2 years ago." However, cell phone tower data would later reveal that, immediately following this meeting, Bronson made 3 calls to his attorney from the courthouse parking garage. Rashad's investigation intensified after this encounter. He began photographing Bronson's movements, documenting his daily routines and occasional deviations. Bank records show Rashad withdrew $5,000 from his 401k to hire a private investigator, Kevin Morris, who specialized in surveillance operations. Morris's detailed reports, spanning April to June 2022, noted Bronson's regular visits to the Hampton Inn, where he had previously met Zuri, though he was now meeting with different young women. The pressure of maintaining her secret began to show in Zuri's behavior. Surveillance cameras at her apartment complex captured her making late-night phone calls from the parking lot, often pacing for hours while Malik slept under his grandmother's watch. By late summer 2022, the pressure cooker of secrets and surveillance reached a critical point. On August 15, 2022, Zuri Wallace received the first in a series of anonymous text messages from a newly activated prepaid phone. "Your father needs to stop asking questions. Think about Malik's future," read the message, sent at 2:47 a.m. Cell tower data would later place the origin of this message near Judge Bronson's West End residence. Over the next 6 weeks, 7 more messages arrived, each more menacing than the last. Digital forensics would recover these texts from Zuri's phone. August 28, 2022, 1:15 a.m. Curious fathers sometimes lose their jobs. Manufacturing plants have accidents. September 3, 2022, 11:52 p.m. Your community college funding could disappear with one phone call. September 17, 2022, 3:24 a.m. Social services take interest in young, unstable mothers. The psychological impact on Zuri became evident in her daily life. Security cameras at her workplace captured increasingly erratic behavior. Missed shifts, lengthy bathroom breaks spent crying, and nervous glances over her shoulder. Her supervisor, Janet Martinez, documented 3 incidents where Zuri appeared to have panic attacks during her shifts, requiring brief medical attention. Malik's daycare records from Little Sprouts Learning Center noted concerning changes in the toddler's behavior. Head teacher Rebecca Chun reported that Zuri began arriving late for pickup, often appearing distracted and anxious. On September 22, 2022, staff documented Zuri sitting in her car for 45 minutes after pickup, clutching her phone and visibly shaking. The breaking point came on October 1, 2022, when Zuri withdrew her entire savings of $3,427 from her credit union account. Bank security footage shows her hands trembling as she completed the transaction. That evening, she purchased a prepaid phone of her own from a 7-Eleven on Broad Street, initiating what would become a fatal confrontation. Her first message to Bronson, sent at 11:42 p.m., was direct. "I have copies of every hotel receipt, every message, every photo. Either you start supporting your son, or everyone sees them." She attached a photo of Malik at his 2nd birthday party, the child's features bearing an unmistakable resemblance to the judge. Bronson's response came 3 hours later. "You're making a serious mistake." However, Zuri had prepared for this moment. Over the previous months, she had methodically gathered evidence. Hotel receipts retrieved from dumpster diving, screenshots of their early communications, and ATM camera footage showing Bronson withdrawing cash before their meetings. On October 5, 2022, Zuri escalated the situation by sending a detailed list of demands. Monthly support payments of $2,500. Coverage of all medical expenses for Malik. A college fund set up in Malik's name. Written acknowledgement of paternity. The documentation trail shows Bronson's mounting panic. Court records indicate he canceled 3 days of proceedings, citing medical issues. His personal credit card statements reveal unusual purchases. A consultation with a reputation management firm, multiple meetings with his personal attorney, and a series of cash withdrawals totaling $15,000. On October 12, 2022, surveillance cameras captured an agitated Bronson entering a private investigator's office in downtown Richmond. The investigator, later identified as Marcus Reynolds, specialized in counter-surveillance and threat assessment. Bank records show a payment of $5,000 to Reynolds' firm the same day. Zuri's final authenticated message to Bronson, sent October 15, 2022. "You have until the end of the month." After that, every news outlet in Virginia gets the full story. Your wife, your colleagues, everyone will know what kind of man sits on that bench. The tension culminated in a series of increasingly hostile exchanges. Bronson's messages, initially threatening, became almost pleading. "You don't understand what you're doing. This will destroy more than just me." Zuri's responses grew more determined. "You destroyed enough already. Now you pay or everyone knows." December 15, 2022, marked the last time surveillance cameras captured Zuri Wallace alive, exiting her apartment building at 7:42 p.m. Cell phone records show her last text to her mother, "Meeting someone to help Malik. Don't wait up." GPS data from her phone traced her final journey to an isolated area off Route 5, near the Charles City-County line, approximately 15 miles east of Richmond. The meeting location, a gravel turnout obscured from the main road by dense pine forest, was carefully chosen. License plate readers on Route 5 captured Judge Bronson's BMW X5 heading east at 8:03 p.m. and returning west at 9:47 p.m. His E-ZPass recorded no highway usage that evening, suggesting he deliberately avoided toll roads and their cameras. Security footage from Little Sprouts Learning Center shows Zuri picking up Malik at 6:30 p.m. that evening. The toddler wore blue dinosaur pajamas and carried his favorite stuffed giraffe, details that would later become crucial in the investigation. The center's director, Margaret Chen, remembered Zuri appearing unusually optimistic, mentioning plans to enroll Malik in their advanced program starting in January. What transpired in that secluded turnout was initially known only through forensic evidence. The crime scene, discovered on January 8, 2023, told a horrific story. FBI forensic reports detailed signs of a violent struggle. Zuri's broken fingernails contained traces of Bronson's DNA, and tire tracks matching his BMW's unique wear pattern marked hasty acceleration from the scene. Malik's stuffed giraffe, stained with both victims' blood, was found 30 feet from their bodies. Malik's cause of death was determined to be asphyxiation, likely occurring as he witnessed his mother's murder. The report estimated the time of death between 8:30 and 9:15 p.m. on December 15th. The bodies were discovered by Michael Thompson, a local hiker, who initially mistook them for discarded mannequins. His 911 call, placed at 10:17 a.m. on January 8th, was notably composed. "I'm on the old logging trail off Route 5, about a quarter mile from the turnout. There's 2 bodies here. One's a woman, young. There's a small child too. They're partially covered with branches. This looks really bad." The Richmond Police Department responded within 22 minutes, immediately securing a half-mile perimeter. Detective Sarah Rodriguez, lead investigator, noted the calculated nature of the crime scene. The bodies were deliberately placed where they wouldn't be visible from the road, but shallow enough that animals would eventually expose them. The perpetrator was counting on natural decomposition to destroy evidence. Sharon Wallace identified her daughter's and grandson's bodies through photographs of their clothing and personal effects. She collapsed during the identification process, requiring medical attention. Rashad Wallace, upon hearing the news, immediately contacted his private investigator, Kevin Morris, who turned over months of surveillance data to the police. The investigation revealed Bronson's methodical attempts to establish an alibi. Credit card records show he purchased gas at a station near his home at 7:15 p.m., then bought takeout from a local restaurant at 10:30 p.m. Security footage from both locations captured him alone, wearing business attire with no visible signs of struggle. However, microscopic evidence told a different story. Fiber analysis would later match unusual blue threads found under his car's front seat to Malik's dinosaur pajamas. The discovery of the bodies triggered an intensive forensic investigation. The FBI's evidence response team processed the scene for 5 days, collecting over 300 pieces of evidence. Among the most damning, a partial fingerprint on Malik's sippy cup matching Bronson's left index finger, and DNA evidence under Zuri's fingernails that would provide a 1 in 1 billion match to the judge. The turnout where the murders occurred became a makeshift memorial. Local residents left flowers, stuffed animals, and notes of condolence. Among them, anonymously placed but captured on a mourner's cell phone video, was a small envelope containing a printed email exchange between Bronson and his attorney, discussing permanent solutions to temporary problems. The envelope was quickly seized as evidence, its contents adding another layer to the mounting case against the judge. The investigation into the murders of Zuri and Malik Wallace began officially on January 9, 2023, led by the Richmond Police Department's Major Crimes Unit. Detective Sarah Rodriguez and FBI Special Agent Marcus Chun coordinated a multi-jurisdictional task force, operating from a command center established at RPD headquarters on Gray Street. The first formal interview with Judge Malcolm Bronson took place on January 10, 2023, at 9 a.m. The transcript reveals Bronson's initial composure through his carefully measured responses. When Detective Rodriguez asked about his relationship with Zuri Wallace, Bronson maintained she had merely appeared in his courtroom for a traffic violation in 2020, claiming that was the extent of their interaction. He steadfastly denied any further contact, describing it as a routine case among hundreds he saw yearly. However, digital forensics told a different story. The FBI's Cellular Analysis Survey team provided detailed documentation of Bronson's movements on December 15, 2022. Cell tower data placed his phone at the crime scene between 8:15 p.m. and 9:30 p.m., directly contradicting his initial statement that he had been home all evening. On January 12, 2023, the Virginia Department of Forensic Science completed a rush DNA analysis comparing samples from Malik's body to Judge Bronson's DNA, obtained through a court order. The results, documented in their report, showed a 99.9999% probability of paternity. This revelation prompted an emergency meeting of the Virginia Judicial Inquiry and Review Commission. The DNA analysis proved even more damning. Epithelial cells recovered from under Zuri's fingernails provided a match to Bronson's DNA profile. Blood traces found on the car's floor mat matched both victims. Touch DNA on Malik's sippy cup matched Bronson's genetic profile. Additionally, cell phone triangulation placed Bronson's device at the crime scene, while deleted text messages recovered from his phone revealed threats sent to Zuri. On January 18, 2023, during the execution of a search warrant at Bronson's residence, investigators discovered a hidden safe containing crucial evidence. Inside, they found a prepaid phone matching the one used to threaten Zuri, along with $25,000 in cash bundled with bands from the same bank where Bronson had made recent withdrawals. The safe also contained a folder of surveillance photos of Zuri and Malik, plus medical records obtained through unauthorized access to the hospital system. The breakthrough came when crime scene technicians processed Bronson's BMW X5 on January 20th. Behind the spare tire, they found a small gold bracelet with Malik engraved on it, a Christmas gift from Sharon Wallace to her grandson. The bracelet contained both victims' DNA and showed signs of violent removal, with the clasp torn and fabric fibers embedded in the links. During a second interview on January 21st, Bronson's composed facade began to crack. When presented with the DNA evidence, surveillance data, and Malik's bracelet, he requested his attorney's presence. His final statement before invoking his right to silence revealed the calculated nature of his actions. "You don't understand. Everything I built, 22 years on the bench. I couldn't let her destroy it all. She kept pushing, threatening. I just wanted her to stop." The Richmond Commonwealth's attorney presented the overwhelming evidence to a special grand jury on January 23, 2023. After 4 hours of testimony, they returned true bills for multiple charges, including first-degree murder, statutory rape, witness intimidation, concealment of dead bodies, and official misconduct. The arrest warrant was executed at 6:15 a.m. on January 24, 2023. FBI agents found Bronson in his study, methodically shredding documents. A subsequent forensic reconstruction of these documents revealed detailed plans for fleeing the country, including contact information for offshore banks and passport forgers. The trial of Commonwealth of Virginia versus Malcolm Bronson commenced on June 15, 2023, in the Richmond Circuit Court. Due to extensive media coverage, the proceedings were moved to the largest courtroom available, with overflow rooms equipped with video feeds to accommodate the press and public. Senior Judge William Marshall, brought in from Norfolk to ensure impartiality, presided over what would become one of Virginia's most notorious criminal cases. Lead prosecutor Catherine Martinez opened the trial with a powerful statement. "This case represents the darkest betrayal of public trust. A judge who used his position not to dispense justice but to prey upon the vulnerable, and who ultimately committed murder to protect his reputation." The prosecution team methodically presented their case over 3 weeks, weaving together forensic evidence, witness testimony, and digital records. Rashad Wallace's testimony proved particularly compelling. For 6 hours, he detailed his mounting suspicions and investigation, his voice breaking as he described his last conversation with Zuri. "She was scared but trying to hide it," he testified. "She kept saying everything would be okay soon, that Malik would have a better future. I should have pushed harder, should have protected her better." Sharon Wallace's testimony about finding Zuri's diary after her death silenced the courtroom. The diary, admitted as evidence, contained entries describing her fear of Bronson. "He says he'll destroy everything if I tell. Says no one will believe me anyway. But Malik deserves to know his father. Deserves more than struggling while he sits in his big house pretending we don't exist." On June 28th, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the medical examiner, provided detailed testimony about the victim's final moments. Security cameras captured several jurors weeping as she described the defensive wounds on Zuri's hands and the evidence that Malik had been conscious during his mother's murder. The prosecution's crime scene reconstruction expert then demonstrated how the physical evidence aligned perfectly with the prosecution's timeline of events. The turning point came on July 3rd, when Margaret Bronson, the judge's wife of 23 years, took the stand. Her testimony revealed a pattern of controlling behavior and secret bank accounts. He was obsessed with his image, she testified. The night Zuri and Malik disappeared, he came home late, immediately showered, and burned his clothes in our fireplace. I knew then that something terrible had happened. On July 12th, facing mounting evidence and the possibility of the death penalty, Bronson accepted a plea agreement. In exchange for guilty pleas to 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of statutory rape, prosecutors agreed not to seek capital punishment. The courtroom fell silent as Bronson, once a respected jurist, stood before Judge Marshall in an orange jumpsuit to enter his plea. Judge Marshall's sentencing statement resonated through the hushed courtroom. Mr. Bronson, you not only took 2 innocent lives but betrayed the very principles of justice you swore to uphold. You used your position of authority to prey upon a vulnerable young woman, then murdered her and your own child to protect your reputation. The court sentences you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for each count of murder, to run consecutively, plus 20 years for statutory rape. As Bronson was led away in chains, Sharon Wallace stood and addressed him directly. You didn't just kill my daughter and grandson. You killed our faith in justice. But now everyone knows what you really are. Her words, captured by courtroom cameras, would become a powerful symbol of the case's impact on public trust in the judicial system.